This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. It's happening, folks. King Charles's office has unveiled the dates of President Donald Trump's upcoming state visit to the UK. Just after midnight on July 14th, the Buckingham Palace announced that the American president and his wife, First Lady Melania Trump, will pay a state visit to the UK from September 17th until September 19th. It says here, the President of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump, accompanied by the First Lady, Mrs. Melania Trump, has accepted an invitation from His Majesty the King to pay a state visit to the United Kingdom from the 17th of September to the 19th of September 2025, the statement said. His Majesty the King will host the President and Mrs. Trump at Windsor Castle, it added. So now, according to People magazine, and I'll tell you why at the end, why I chose to read this particular article, the 3-day state visit will be the second consecutive state visit hosted at Windsor Castle this year. While it's more traditional for the British monarch to host state visits from Buckingham Palace in London, the iconic royal residence is currently amid an extensive renovation, which is due to wrap up in 2027. King Charles recently used Windsor Castle as the base for the state visit from France with French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte Macron, visited the UK from July 8th to July 10th. Further details about the next state visit are expected to be announced in due course, and the diplomatic trip will be the Trump's second, an unprecedented state visit to the UK. The upcoming visit is poised to be historic because Trump will be the first elected political leader in modern times to be invited for 2 state visits by a British monarch. The Republican leader, who served his first term from 2017 to 2021, entered office for his second term on January 20th. The late Queen Elizabeth hosted the U.S. president and his wife for a state visit in June 2019 during his first administration, which included a glamorous state banquet at Buckingham Palace, attended by the Queen, then Prince Charles, the future Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Catherine Middleton. The visit came together following much discussion about timings for the trip due to protest fears, the New York Times reported then. King Charles, 76, invited Trump, 79, for a second state visit to the United Kingdom in February. The invitation came through a letter that British Prime Minister Keir Starmer presented to the American president during a press conference in the Oval Office of the White House in Washington, D.C., and Trump accepted the invitation on the spot. The answer is yes. On behalf of our wonderful First Lady Melania and myself, the answer is yes, Trump said in part then in a video shared on X. We look forward to being there and honoring the king, honoring your country. Your country is a fantastic country, and it will be an honor to be there. The U.S. president also mentioned that the letter says at Windsor, which he said was really something. In late June, an authoritative report in the Times said the state visit from the U.S. would be held in September. A formal letter of invitation, signed by King Charles, was hand-delivered by British officials to the White House, putting the plans in motion. His Majesty has known President Trump for many years and looks forward to hosting him and the First Lady later this year, a palace aide said. It was initially thought that a more informal visit would unfold at one of the King's Scottish homes, possibly during the summer break, with an additional longer visit to follow. However, due to both the King's and the President's schedules, people understand it was not possible to arrange. President Trump and First Lady Melania last crossed paths with Queen Elizabeth, Charles, and Camilla at the NATO's 70th anniversary reception at Buckingham Palace in December 2019. Now, the reason why I chose to read the People magazine article is because this was the first, or one of the first, news outlets that had reported this upcoming trip announcement by Buckingham Palace. So now I want to point something out to you to make you think. As you can see here, this article was published on July 13, 2025 at 7:01 p.m. in the evening, East Coast time. That would mean in British summertime, that article would have been published at 12:01 a.m., July 14th. So how is it that People magazine had reported that just after midnight on July 14th, Buckingham Palace announced that President Trump and Melania were going to be visiting the UK? Unless People magazine is part of the rota, in which Buckingham Palace gave this story to People magazine to publish once the embargo or whatever was lifted, which most likely right after midnight, they went ahead and published their story. Now, many of you are probably saying, well, so what? Why does it matter? Yes, we know that the royals have a rota that they give stories to, and this is how it works. No, you're missing the point here. People magazine is the one that printed that fake story about Meghan and her 5 friends, as well as many other garbage stories gracing the cover of People magazine. So my question is if you were Buckingham Palace, why would you be working with the same magazine that has been trashing the royal family? Pretty much fueling and supporting the rumors about the royal rift and it being over between Prince Harry and William. Like, People magazine didn't even give it 5 minutes to make it a plausible story and saying that, oh yeah, we saw this on the royal family website that this was announced. Obviously, they were given this scoop way before Buckingham Palace decided to put that up on the website, because there's no way you would have had this article ready at 12:01 a.m. UK time, just as Buckingham Palace made this announcement. You see where I'm going with this? You understand where I'm heading with this? The fact that Buckingham Palace has been in cahoots with People magazine, the same magazine that had been publishing all of Harry and Meghan's lies, what does that tell you? It tells you that the palace is very much in on all of this theater that we have been seeing with Harry and Meghan. And it's noticeable here because who are the media outlets reporting on this visit? It's the US and UK left-wing mainstream media, from the BBC to NBC to CBS, The Guardian, Time magazine. So when you look at this, these were the 3 outlets that Buckingham Palace gave this story to before they published it on their website, because all 3 of them published their articles around the same time. People magazine published at 7:01. We then had CBS News publishing at 7:03 p.m. Remember, this is the same media outlet that did that Oprah disaster. And here you have Buckingham Palace choosing 3 leftist mainstream media outlets that pushed all of Meghan Markle's lies. Why didn't the palace use Fox News? At the time of this recording, even the White House hadn't published the news of this yet. So now the question that I have running in my head now is, why is the palace making such a big deal about this, giving it full court press in the United States, as opposed to giving this news firsthand to the royal rotas in the UK? Like, why did the palace go all out on this? I mean, if the royals are not supposed to be considered political, why are they drawing so much spotlight to it? And the only reason that I can think of is that this is all part of the damage control before Trump gets there in September. I truly do believe that Trump does know what Harry and his bitch wife have been doing here in the United States the past 4 years. I do believe he does know that Harry and Meghan were a part of interfering with the 2020 election and censoring Americans. And I also believe that Trump knows that Harry has something to say about January 6th. Everything that we have seen has been a lie. The royal family very much have been a part of it to a certain degree. Maybe not Meghan accusing them of racism. But yes, the royals or the institution helped Meghan clean up her past by going ahead and trying to get things scrubbed. Yes, the institution helped cover up this lie that we see with these 2 phantom children. Yes, the institution helped cover up Meghan's past. They know the truth, that what we were told has all been a lie. So you cannot say that the royals have no clue as to what has been going on. They know, and they went along with it. All for what? And it goes back to what I stated from the beginning. This was all to keep Donald Trump out of office. In 2020, I showed you how Harry and Meghan had been undermining the First Amendment. Prince Harry knew all the media people that suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story. Like, he knew the Atlantic Council, New York Times. He also knew and was working for Aspen Institute. This was the same organization that held that tabletop exercise to do a dry run and how this suppression was going to go down. I mean, like, we'd be stupid to think that Harry knew absolutely nothing about that situation, as well as the censorship that was going on behind the scenes and the attacks that so many of us were facing as a result of Harry running this military grade censorship operation. Look, I mean, it's serious. And maybe Trump is just holding on to that and going to use that over the king's head to leverage and get what he needs. I mean, when we look at the situation with Jeffrey Epstein and what's going on there, I think part of the reason why nothing is being released is because there's too many powerful, wealthy people that have been involved with this disgusting network. And I think Trump is going to use that to leverage and get what he needs for the United States of America. I truly believe that. You know, say what you want about Trump, but Trump is not going to embarrass the king. He's not a jerk like that. He has too much respect for the late queen that he's not going to do that to Charles. Now, I do think Prince Harry will be handled, and I do think Meghan will be handled. Unfortunately, we're going to be lied to again, and we're going to see things happen that are not going to make any kind of sense, and just understand that it's all a show. There's a reason why the United States would not release Harry's visa. And that's because if that visa or the information around that visa ever got out, it would tell a completely different story. I'm convinced of that. Megxit was a lie. But now you're seeing all of the pieces now falling together, like over the weekend with this so-called secret summit. Now, there's rumors running around that the reason why this was held was because Harry wants money. No, folks, put your common sense hat back on here. The people that are sitting at that table are strictly responsible for communications and PR. If it had anything to do with finances, do you really think the communications secretary and the head of the household for Harry and Meghan, who's in charge of their communications, would be sitting there talking about that? No, there would be lawyers sitting at that table. I am convinced they are lockstep in trying to bring Harry back home because this mission has failed. Now, I suspect there are many reasons for why King Charles is so anxious to have Donald Trump back in the UK for this rare second state visit. And I think a lot of it has to do with the climate nonsense and getting that back on track. I'm sure Charles doesn't like that Donald Trump's all about drill, baby, drill, as well as keeping plastic straws alive. I know that I'm a fan. Then you have the whole Epstein shit show and what's behind that door that could be implicating for not only Andrew, but other members of the family, like Prince Harry, maybe. And then you also have, finally, the involvement of Harry with the 2020 election, with knowing about January 6th, with being a part of the censorship industrial complex and undermining our civil liberties. I mean, it's a shit show right now. So you bet Charles is going to want to sit down and see how he can make this better, I would think. Do I think anything is going to happen publicly now to Harry and Meghan? No, I don't think so, unless something out of left field comes out, like a lawsuit or something else. I don't know. Maybe the DOJ will do its job and take action, maybe. But don't think that they don't know. Now, just because we're not seeing what is going on doesn't mean nothing is happening. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot happening behind the scenes that none of us are privy to, and they're trying to figure out. It explains a lot of the craziness that we have seen with Harry and Meghan and how they've been distancing themselves. You know, think about this. James Holt is back in the UK. Ask yourself, why is James Holt back in the UK? Now, the encouraging thing that I see right now is the propaganda is fading out. The last couple days, we have not been saturated with garbage from this couple. Granted, we know that they have not fully gone away, but the last couple days, we haven't been saturated or inundated with PR stunts. Yes, Meghan and Harry most likely released this so-called summit the weekend of to ruin Catherine's Wimbledon. But other than that, we don't see Meghan, out and about in a parking lot or doing bullshit on her Instagram. Granted, the day is not over yet, but I see this as a good sign, unless, it's intentional because there are these specific messages that we're supposed to understand, like the king meeting with Donald Trump, like Harry might be going back to the UK or they're trying to find a path back to the UK. I find that her not doing anything to overshadow that says a lot. You know what I mean? And that just makes me think more and more of how the palace and the Sussexes here in their Montecito Castle have been working lockstep with the things that they've been doing to, grab people's attention and to, whatever, distract everybody. What was it all for? No, I truly do believe that Harry and Meghan came over here to undermine the United States. And you might laugh, but look at how far and how much they have done to do that. The impact that they have made. You might not see it on the surface because nobody's talking about it, but I'm showing everybody, especially with that Archewell Fugazi Public Charity and the things that they have been funding and the movement that we have been seeing pertaining to censorship laws around the world. You cannot deny that. Now, the last thing that I want to say here before I go, if indeed this comes out that this was a military psychological operation that had been backed and supported by the deep state, aka the Chia, or some other intelligence agency, chances of anything happening to Meghan Markle will probably be slim, just because we're seeing what is going on with Jeffrey Epstein and they protecting that guy. Just because he might be intelligence, it might be the same situation with Meghan and Harry. I'm just saying. Food for thought. But what do you guys think? Do you think that the palace is in line with Harry and Meghan on some of these PR stunts that we have seen play out the last 7 years that make absolutely no sense? Let me know your thoughts below in the comment section. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.